All right, let's jump right in. Today we are talking about something absolutely essential. How do you take a bunch of raw data, pull out a key insight, and then wrap it in a story that's so powerful people have no choice but to listen and to act? Let's figure it out. And look, this isn't just some nice-to-have soft skill. As Google's own chief economist says, being able to find that golden nugget of an insight and share it effectively, that's going to be one of the most valuable things you can do. So why is it so critical right now? Well, it really all comes down to this next number. By 2025, it's predicted that we'll be creating 175 zettabytes of data. I mean, what even is a zettabyte? It's a trillion gigabytes. So that's 175 trillion gigabytes. It's an absolutely mind-boggling amount of information. And it creates a huge paradox, right? Because with all this data, you'd think we'd be making better decisions than ever. But why do so many important discoveries just fizzle out?
And that gets us to the heart of the matter. We're not starving for information. We are literally drowning in it. The real bottleneck, the real challenge, is the gap between having a brilliant idea and actually getting people to do something about it.
You know, we like to think of analytics as this neat, clean chain of events. You get data, it becomes an insight, that leads to a decision, and boom, you get action and value. Easy. But if you look at it like these dominoes, that chain is super fragile. And more often than not, it breaks right here, between insight and decision. Because just showing someone the facts, it's rarely enough to get them to move. So what is it? What's actually breaking that chain? Why do so many brilliant data-driven ideas fall completely flat? Well, to understand that, we have to look at one of the most tragic and frankly infuriating stories in the history of medicine. Okay, so picture this. It's the 1840s. A doctor named Ignaz Semmelweis notices women are dying at an alarming rate after childbirth in his clinic. He has a hunch. He collects the data, and he proves, without a doubt, that if doctors just wash their hands, the death rate plummets from a horrifying 12% all the way down to 2%. The data was undeniable. But what happened? The medical community completely rejected him. They were insulted. He presented them with the facts, but he completely failed to persuade them. And his life-saving idea, it died with him, only to be proven right decades later.
And that story, as tragic as it is, points us directly to the solution. The problem isn't usually the data, it's the delivery. To get past that wall of resistance, the same wall that Dr. Semmelweis hit, you have to build a bridge between cold, hard logic and human emotion. And the building materials for that bridge? Their narrative and visuals.
The Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman gave us this brilliant way of thinking about it. Our brain runs on two systems. System 2 is the pilot. It's slow, careful, and analytical. It loves spreadsheets and raw data. But System 1, that's the autopilot. It's fast, emotional, and intuitive. And guess what? It's making most of our decisions. So if you're only talking to the pilot, you're completely ignoring the one who's actually flying the plane. And the effect this has is just staggering. Take this study. They gave mock juries the exact same evidence in a murder trial. When it was just presented as a list of facts, the conviction rate was about 63%. But when the prosecution wove those same facts into a story, the conviction rate shot up to 78%. And when the defense was the one to tell the better story, it dropped to just 31%. The facts never changed. The story did. And the story changed everything.
And get this, it goes even deeper than psychology. It's actually biological. A neuroscientist named Yuri Hassan found that when you listen to a compelling story, your brain activity literally starts to synchronize with the storytellers. It's a phenomenon called neural coupling. You're not just hearing their words, you're creating a shared experience on a neurological level. It's like a direct data transfer for ideas and emotions.
And then, when you add visuals to that story, it's like throwing fuel on the fire. It's called the picture superiority effect, and it is no joke. In one study, patients were given instructions on how to care for a wound. The group with illustrated instructions, 46% comprehension. The group with just text, a shocking 6%. 6%! You might as well have told them nothing. And of course, they were way more likely to actually do what the instructions said. Visuals make things clearer, memorable, and actionable.
Okay, so we get it. Stories work, visuals work, but how do we actually put it all together? How do we build one of these things from scratch? Well, that brings us to the really practical part, a simple framework for crafting your very own data story.
Think of it like this. There are 3 essential pillars. First, you need a solid data foundation. That's your what. It has to be accurate and solid. Second, you need a compelling narrative. That's your so what. Why should anyone care about this data? And third, you need powerful visual anchors. These are the charts, images, and graphics that make the story easy to grasp and hard to forget.
And here's the absolute key. The magic isn't in any one of these pillars alone. It's in weaving all 3 of them together. When your data, your narrative, and your visuals all point in the same direction, you create this incredibly powerful experience that speaks to both sides of the brain, the logical pilot and the emotional autopilot. It's persuasive and it's memorable.
So how do you organize all this? Well, you can use a simple but really effective structure called the data storytelling arc. It basically steals the best tricks from thousands of years of classic storytelling and applies them to your data. Let's walk through it.
It's got 4 basic stages. First, the setting. You have to set the stage, give people the context they need, and hook them in. Second, you build suspense with rising insights. You introduce key pieces of data one by one, building toward your main point. Third, you hit them with the climax, the aha moment. This is where you reveal your single most important, game-changing insight. And finally, you give them the solution and next steps. You can't just drop a bombshell and walk away. You have to give them a clear path forward.
And when you start using a structure like this, you transform your role. You're not just a data analyst or a presenter anymore. You become a change agent. You're the person who can guide people all the way from confusion to clarity and from clarity to action. And as you're doing this, never ever forget to make it human. There's this incredible study. Researchers sent out 2 donation requests. One had all the depressing statistics about millions of starving children in Africa. It raised an average of $1.14. The other flyer? It just told the story of one 7-year-old girl named Rokia. That one raised $2.38 on average, more than double. That's the Rokia effect. We connect with one person, not a statistic of millions.
So really, your journey to making a real impact has these key steps. Of course, you have to build your data literacy. But that's not enough. The real accelerator is mastering data storytelling. That's the skill that takes all your hard work and turns it into actual, visible progress.
Because really, that's what this is all about. At the end of the day, what good is an insight if it just sits on a slide? Without action, our data is just a collection of empty numbers. It's just potential that's been wasted.
So, the next time you're looking at a dashboard, a report, or a spreadsheet, don't just ask, what does this data say? Ask yourself a better question. What story is this data waiting to tell?